So a word about what we are doing before we do it. Because it is RIC Sunday, I have asked Dorie if she would co-preach with me. And I've asked her to do this wearing many, many hats. So if you know Dorie, you know that she works in mental health. You know that she has been to seminary. You know that she, what else, Dorie?
Well, it all started.
Oh my.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I own my own business, blah, blah, blah.
Owns her own business, yep.
I have an amazing wife.
Yes.
Yeah. Who's,
on
I
a
think,
plane.
watching from the UK today, so hi.
So there are many, many hats that Dorie wears, and what I'm going to do for our sermon today is I'm going to ask her to move between each of those hats with 3 different questions related to the text. Dorie and I practiced this on the phone yesterday. We walked through all the questions, and it only took us 61 minutes.
I hope you brought a snack.
So I told Dorie that I have an internal preacher's clock that after 10 minutes goes off, and I know that I'm about to lose people because I've been talking for 10 minutes. So we are going to attempt to keep this conversation within 10 minutes. I am going to probably push the conversation. It'll feel a little unnatural because I'm wanting to get us through each of the questions. All that to say, talk to Dorie afterwards. You'll have a fantastic conversation related to any of these 3 questions. Know that she's very open for conversation.
Yes,
yep.
absolutely.
Okay, so let us pray. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of all our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
So the first question I wanted Dorie to wrestle with is this question related to what we're doing in Epiphany. So if you remember, if you've been here for previous weeks, for the season of Epiphany, we are looking at God in the ordinary of our lives. And our reading this week is what might feel, well, a little unordinary, but there's an ordinariness about anger. So the people become very angry at Jesus, and they attempt to throw him off a cliff. And what I asked Dorie to start to wrestle with is this idea of anger and enemies, and what do we do with anger in our lives, and when people make us really, really mad, or when people just feel like an enemy. Most of us don't have sworn enemies anymore. Oh, but we have people that get under our skin. And I think this text helps us understand a little bit. So Dorie, first hat, mental health practitioner. Talk to us a little bit about the anger in this story and what you see happening in this story.
So I am never interested in anger, ever. I was asked to teach anger management classes, and when I said that first, people are like, well, you can't teach anger management classes, because anger is never, ever in and of itself. There's always something that drives anger. So I'm more interested in what's actually driving the anger, what's triggering the person. Anger is a very, very powerful emotion that's often covering, masking, compensating for what we're initially triggered by, which is a very weak or powerless feeling, power down feeling emotion. So, like, for example, anybody have an idea of what drives anger? Fear. Fear drives anger. What else? Jealousy drives anger. Sadness. Come on, Andrew, what is it? Hunger. You mentioned dessert a lot. What? Exactly. So to play off of that, perfect. We plan that or something. Mental health person in the future there. So one of the things, especially that drives anger, is everything that you guys named: embarrassment, humiliation, those things that we don't want to feel, that we're very uncomfortable with. Another thing that drives it, though, is hurt. And I believe, and I've worked a lot with couples in couples counseling. 99.999% of the time in couples work with people who are hurt, it is a feeling of not being considered. We don't like that. All of us want to feel considered. All of us want to be validated and valued. And when we feel devalued, we feel small. And so the typical response to that is to get loud, get big. Think of the Incredible Hulk if you're a Marvel fan like me. Puny Banner compared to the big, strong, angry guy, because he's always angry. And I'm more interested in what's triggering that. Like I was telling Mindy yesterday that we're all really just living in a hall of mirrors. That's really your life. That's the way I work with people, I like to think. So if you're triggered by something, someone cuts you off in traffic, someone, 18 items in the 15 items or less aisle and you're angry by that or irritated or bothered, what is that reflecting back on you? And it's personal. If you have an elevation of emotion one way or another, it's always personal. Something's going on within you. Not good, bad, right, or wrong, no reason to judge it. Just know what's being triggered within you, and then you can have some say, control over that versus blaming other people for how you feel.
So in the story, we have, this is a continuation of last week's story where Jesus stands up in the synagogue to preach, and suddenly there's a turn, right? And the people get so angry that they want to throw him off a cliff. And Jesus' response is he just walks on through. When Dorie and I were first talking about this text, I was really interested in Jesus' response. She was really interested in what was going on with the people. I wonder if you might flesh that out for us a bit.
I'm always interested when people are homicidal.
Yes, that too.
Because essentially these people are homicidal. Like, that's pretty angry. So I love focusing on Jesus as a model for living. I love that he kind of just walks right through, like, nonplus. I don't know if that's actually the attitude behind it. But I immediately went to the dysfunction of, again, not just the behavior, but what's driving that behavior. What offended you so badly? What irritated you? Again, whether you felt small, what was so personal going on within these people, the individuals, that they then got enraged? Did they feel rebuffed? Did they feel dismissed? Did they feel smaller? Were they mad that Jesus was stealing the limelight or taking their place? There was jealousy, you just mentioned. So I don't know what was going on. That's your job to, theologically speaking, psychologically speaking, something's always going on. It's always personal.
Yeah, and what we're looking at in this story is that Jesus is standing with his people, and he says, you know what? I'm not doing special things for y'all. You know what? Everyone else accepts me. I'm going to go do these miracles with them. And he does. He goes and he does miracles everywhere else. But he won't do miracles in his hometown. So I imagine they feel really rejected.
Yeah.
Literally rejected by God, who says, sorry, I'm not doing them here. Yeah. But what's interesting, what we talked about, is also this idea that when Jesus walked away, their option was to act on their anger or to follow him. To follow him, to go and see these miracles that he would perform in other places, right? So there's always this really interesting option when something rises up within us to look at it, right, or to act on it, right?
Yeah. I wonder if they were thinking, like, what are we, chopped liver? Are we not going to? I don't know where Taylor Swift lives. I don't know where her hometown is. But would it kind of be like the neighborhood girls not going to do a concert for us? She'll go and sell out stadiums someplace else. Yeah. Are we not good enough for this? What, that kind of thing. We raised you, brah. I don't know if they said brah back then, but we raised you. Why wouldn't you give us a little piece? I can see that.
Nice.
Very human.
Yep. I'm going to move us to the next one. I feel like we could talk about anger for a long, long time.
Yeah. Is this the first time Taylor Swift was mentioned on this?
I don't know. Is
it?
it?
We're going to go with it.
Today. Yep. So Dorie, today is RIC Sunday, where we celebrate and recommit to being a church with an ever-expanding sense of welcome and inclusion, and especially celebration. You have been in a variety of churches during your life. As a gay woman, I wonder if you might tell us a little bit about your experiences and why you settled at Zion, and how we might continue to deepen and broaden our welcome.
All right. Speaking of anger and being personal, taking it personally, I grew up, I didn't know there was a word for gay. I'm a preacher's kid in a Southern Baptist church growing up. And we didn't even have, I think I was in my 20s when I heard the word lesbian for the first time. And just the word sounds awful, so I knew it was like lesbian, And I was like, oh God, I don't want to, I'm not that, am I? And so I didn't know. What I did know was what I thought or felt that I was not okay. 100%. So kind of like in Genesis, when you're ashamed of something, you hide. And so I hid, and I became a super Christian. That was the best thing I could do. When I say preacher's kid, I was a good one. Some of y'all may not know, it's always the opposite in some churches. The preacher's kids are the worst. I wanted to be the best one because I was overcompensating. It's personal. I didn't want to be abandoned. I didn't want to be kicked out. This was not just my family, my church family. My whole entire center of my universe was my church. Fast forward, long story. Later, I eventually left church. I went into seminary. I knew enough to stay and graduate when I finally figured out who I was and what was going on. But I left church and went into social services and got a master's in social work. But I wanted nothing to do with church, not at all. And then I fooled around and fell in love, as if you know the song. And so Andrea, I moved out here and started dating Andrea, and we moved in together, and we got married. And she said, it's really important for me to have a church home. And I'm like, good luck with that, tell me about it when, And I was really planning on, and she said it was really important for us as a family. And I was planning on being that kind of person that sits in the back. I think of a husband, I don't know why, but like, all right, I'll just sit in the back and not participate, and which is kind of funny if you know me. So now I'm here at the front, right?
Yes, you are.
I couldn't stay in the back. But we went church shopping, which was harder than finding a house, was finding a church, because we're also politically opposite. So we had a funny running joke that was like, I'll be in the car. Every time we sat someplace and somebody would preach, and we're like, all right, I'll be in the car. And so finally, just absolutely exacerbated by the whole process. I think Andrea says I Googled it. I think she Googled it. But regardless, one of us Googled church around me that doesn't hate gay people, I think is essentially what we Googled. Who doesn't hate gay people in churches? And RIC came up, and we were from a Baptist background, both of us, and so we didn't even think of Lutheran or liturgical places of worship. And we're like, what's an RIC? And literally, we watched YouTube videos on it, and then we Googled, mapped what's an RIC around us, and found Zion, and showed up. And I tell you, one of the churches, it dawns on me, one of the churches I went to, I always, if we thought we could be members at that church, I interviewed the pastor. I didn't call it an interview. I just said, hey, can we meet for coffee? And one of the churches, I absolutely won't say which church it was here in town, not this church, but I did meet with Tracy for coffee, and she was great. But before that, I went with one of them, and I said, we're a gay couple. We want to know if we'll be safe, if we'll be okay. I grew up in a family that you hold hands during prayers, and that kind of thing. And the pastor said to me over coffee, he said, as long as you don't wave a flag around, I think you'll be okay. And immediately I was ashamed, and my reaction was, oh my God, we don't do that. We don't do that politically. We're not in your face about it. But I later thought, what a shameful thing to say. What an absolutely, I just get mad about it right now. That's personal. See, I'm having an emotion. That's personal. I'm angry. That's personal. Because I felt small. And I love our logo. I love the RIC logo. I love our Love Lives Here logo. I love that because that symbol means something. That symbol that, Alice, you made those beautiful face cloths with our RIC and the rainbow on it. That symbol means to people like me, this place is safe and you're welcome here. We stayed for the theology. We stayed because we love the message of Jesus and love and grace-filled, like Beth, you talked about this morning. We stayed for that, but what brought us here is knowing we were safe, that we could hold hands during prayer, and we were seen as a family, and we could serve as a family, and we are so honored and blessed by that. And we grow as a family here. My friends, I know timing, my friends say, yeah, but if you could be straight, don't you think they would really prefer you to be straight? And they're shocked. I'm like, no, I think they would be a little miffed. If Andrea and I weren't together, it'd be like, we were just kidding this whole time. It was just we were punk. No, I think you guys would be like, no, those were our girls. We love those girls. It's not a workaround. It's not an other than, well, we love them, hate, love the sinner, hate the sin. No, we love each other here. And I just want to keep that going. I want to keep that going. Whoever comes in this room, whatever they bring, you are loved here.
That's a great transition. Earlier this week, Kevin spoke on a panel on Zion's behalf, an incredible panel. I will send the link out. It's worth going to watch. And one of the things that came up was this sense that becoming an RIC church is really the first step. It's not the final thing that you do. It's the first step. So I wonder, Dorie, if you might lead us into how do we reflect on what is the next step? We're an RIC church. What's the next step?
Well, I think, like I just mentioned, the flag and the logos and stuff, I think being visible, whether it's on our website and our social media, whether we actually have, the great Methodist Church, St. Mark's down the street, they have a flag, and, something visibly, again, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Children's Safe Children's logo at certain places, so kids know if you're running away or you're lost or whatever, this is a safe place you can come, and there's training for the professionals that work there to help your kids, and they're safe here. That's what that symbol means to me, that you're safe here. And then once people come inside, asking, learning about people. Everybody has a story. Every single one of y'all could sit up here, and tell your stories if you wanted to. Everybody has a story. And so asking, when did you guys meet? And we've just been inundated by so many wonderful questions of getting to know us and incorporating us into your lives and us and vice versa. So I think learning where the wounds are. Not everybody walks in this church with a toxic religion, or we're told they aren't good enough, but some people do. And to say, well, we're not that church. We didn't put that there, but to say we can intentionally be part of the healing process. And part of anybody that you guys have grieved. Part of grief is telling your story, is not shying away from that, but opening up to that. And allowing, we heal in community. You can heal by yourself, but it's so much richer and faster psychologically to heal in a community. I found healing in this community. I don't carry those wounds from my childhood anymore. And now I want to be part of the healing process and the reconciliation process with other people that grew up with those shameful messages that they didn't deserve.
Which is a great transition to our final question.
Okay.
So Dorie called me the other day and she said, I have this great idea for a book study. And we looked at doing it during Lent. And it is connected to recovery. And every church has a connection to recovery, or most churches have a connection to recovery and folks in recovery. But Dorie was thinking about this more broadly. So I wonder if you will give us the 1-minute commercial about the small group that we will do during Lent.
Okay, the 1-minute commercial. So the book is by Richard Rohr. He's a Franciscan monk, priest, and author. You can YouTube, and he's also a speaker. And so Richard Rohr, some of you may know, and his book is called Breathing Underwater. It's based on a poem. It's not a swim class, like we got a swim coach back there. So it's based on a poem, Breathing Underwater, Spirituality and the 12 Steps. The 12 steps, most people know, are associated with Alcoholics Anonymous, Friends of Bill. And from that, other support group, other groups, 12-step groups have come, Friends and Families of Alcoholics, Al-Anon, NA, you name it. Tons of groups use the 12 steps. And I was telling Pastor Mindy, it was kind of like those people have something special, almost like the Masons, like they have a secret and they seem, if they've been in recovery, they're always happy. Like they're always like, they know something what do they know? And I think we were talking about spirituality, and part of 12-step work is really embracing a type of spirituality that, number one, religion, at least the one I grew up in, says you come cleaned up. You got to clean yourself up, put on your Sunday best. Spirituality says you come exactly as you are. And step one is admitting you're powerless. We're powerless. And it's emptying yourself. So I think what is so powerful, we don't have to have an addiction to be part of a recovery process, but fast forward when you show up on Wednesday nights, we all are addicted to something, and Rohr makes a point that we're addicted to our own way of thinking. And we get trapped and we get stuck, and then we look at our society today and our culture and our partisanship, and it's my way or the highway and all those kinds of things. Then from that toxicity comes perfectionism. I know I'm over a minute. Opinionated head, a closed down heart, and a defensive body or a defensive posture. The joy of that, okay, fine, we have to get in touch with that. The joy of that is how we release that. And it is a 100% program. It is not a self-help program, because people in recovery recognize they cannot help themselves. If we could, we would have. That's why you got to hit rock bottom. We can't. And so we give our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. Step 3, all of us who can't appreciate or relate to that, when we come to the cross or we come to church, it is an emptying of ourselves. It is a turning our will or our ego over that brings healing and hope and strength, and for me, sanity. And I just want to share that with you guys. I want to blend our religious world with our 12-step recovery spirituality world and see if we can have a really interesting discussion around that.
So Dorie, who should come to that?
Everybody. Everyone.
What if you...
Are you breathing?
What if you're okay with your life? Should you come to that?
Yeah, because you're in denial. No. I met a guy once that said, if you're not in at least 3 different 12 steps programs, you're in denial about something. We look at alcohol, we look at drugs, we look at those people. It's a mindset. It's a spiritual, people say that we all have this God-sized hole. And we fill it. We all have this spirit-sized hole, and we fill it, whether it's with workaholic. You don't have to think of it even as addiction or a holicism, but we fill it with work or children or caretaking or wanting to be liked or appreciated or, all this kind of stuff, controlling my environment because I'll be anxious otherwise. When really we're seeking physical solutions to spiritual problems. And my perspective, even though in psychology, every problem is a spiritual problem. Therefore, every problem needs a spiritual solution. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Amen? Yeah? Kind of? I think so. So thank you. Preach it, brother Roger. I think so. So if you're a spirit person and you're interested in deepening, and you don't have to identify what your problems are, just come for the conversation of a spiritual solution, whether it's for you or a family member or neighbor.
Great. My clock says 14 minutes. Where
Nailed
are we?
it.
No,
Nailed
are we
it.
at 10? What are we at?
We're at 11:51.
We're at 11. Okay, so Dorie, leave us with one line of good news in a sentence. What is the good news of this morning?
Strength and hope. God walks with us. You do not do life on your own. If you do, I won't say you're doing it wrong. You don't have to. God walks with you, and we walk with you. A dear friend of mine, I know you said one sentence, come on, that's not fair. A dear friend of mine in recovery said, we're all just walking each other home at the end of the day, and God walks with us. And we all as a community walk with each other, and we follow God as God passes with all of us. I wouldn't live it any other way. I've never been more at peace and happy, and I just want to share that with others.
Nice. The good news I would follow that up with is this invitation. Jesus walks on through, and you can sort of sit there in your own stuff, your own resentment, your own whatever, or you can get up and say, what is this new thing that God is doing? Let me go follow. Yeah. Let me not sit in this anger, in this way of being. Let me get up and go follow and see what God is up to. So I hear that as incredible good news. Yeah. Thank you, Dorie.
Yay, thank you. This is
we're not clappers, well, we're kind of clappers, but let's clap for Dorie, shall we?
Let's clap for you, all of us.